Andrew, on today's show, we are interviewing Kevin McDugle. He's elected to the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He represents the 12th District. And anytime we interview a politician, I think this show could get serious. Ooh. So I want to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. I want you to see if you can introduce today's guest and just practice saying it this way, because it makes it less serious, less dark, less heavy. Okay, so just practice. On today's show, we interviewed Kevin McDugle. Try it.
Kevin.
On today's show, we interviewed Kevin McDugle.
McDugle.
No, on today's show, we interviewed Kevin McDugle.
What am I doing wrong here? McDugle.
You have to want it for you. McDugle.
McDugle.
No, I'm serious. Say it like that. On today's show, we interviewed Kevin McDugle.
McDugle.
Try it. Come on. You have to want it.
I want it.
Try it.
I want it.
On today's show, we On today's Drive Time show, we interview Oklahoma House of Representatives from the 12th District, Kevin
McDugle.
McDugle. Since 2000. I mean, we're trying to lighten the mood, Andrew. Why don't you
got to.
Try it one more time.
Oh, yeah.
McDugle.
I can't do.
On today's show, Kevin McDugle shares why mask mandates, lockdowns, shuttering schools, and quarantining America to protect us from the COVID-19 virus is unconstitutional.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom, now we hit.
Started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's CNZ up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we hit. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get.
Yes, and yes, Thrive Nation. It is a very special occasion because we're going to give you 15 minutes of fast and furious knowledge that you don't probably get in college, but you should, about how government works with Kevin McDugle. Kevin, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Clay, doing outstanding. Thank you so much. I've always admired you and Dr. Z. Sure appreciate you.
Hey, brother, I for people out there who are Google searching your name fast and furiously right now, tell everybody, what is your elected position?
I am the State House Representative for District 12 in Oklahoma.
So what exactly does that mean? I think we have a country right now where a lot of people are somewhat politically ignorant of who does what and how it happens, and that's how we end up with crazy people in office. Seriously, this is how, a lot of people are just apathetic to the entire political process. What exactly do you do as the Oklahoma House Representative for District 12?
Well, District 12 is a district that's in Wagner County. So I've got Broken Arrow, Coweta, Wagner, Porter, OK, that entire community, 680 square miles in my case. There are 101 of us spread out across the state. Each one has a district. Mine's big. Some are as small as 2 miles by 2 miles.
Really?
But all of them have about 38,000 people in them.
So,
and our job is basically to represent the people in that district.
So when you say represent, I want to make sure we get this idea. You at one point decided to become politically active. When was that?
It was about 8 years ago when I first ran for office, and I was basically just aggravated at government. And I was a business guy, and I thought, you know what? The guy that I was could run against was the one bringing Obamacare to Oklahoma. And I thought, I don't want Obamacare. Nobody else is running against this guy, so guess what? I will. And so that was my first run for office and had never even been to a political meeting prior to that.
I have 5 more rapid-fire questions, and I'm going to open it up here for we have kind of a town hall of sorts in our studio today. So as a politician, Kevin, politicians are really hated individuals. I mean, people really hate a lot of politicians. Do you ever hate yourself?
I hate politics, that's for sure. I'm not a politician, even though I'm in politics right now, and I think there's a big difference. A lot of people look at politicians, and what I see on the federal level are politicians who kiss butt and give 2 different answers depending on what crowd they're in front of.
True.
Right? That's typical end game politician. But when you've got business people who get into politics, I think it's more like the military folks, and that's my background, right? So if I go recruit a military person to run for office, I know that at least once in their life they were willing to give their life for something greater than themselves. And in politics, too often we see people who are in it for themselves. And so I think that's the big difference is you've got people who are in politics that are not politicians traditional.
So what do you do on a daily basis in your role? I mean, you walk us through your daily flow.
Sure. February through May, we're actually at the state capitol, and that's what we call in session. So for 4 months out of the year, February, March, April, and May, we're out of district. We're at the capitol. We're trying to either create law or get rid of bad law. And our whole job is to represent the district that we came from. So I have a rural district that's full of farmers and veterans, small towns. And so my needs for my district are a whole lot different than the needs of downtown Tulsa, right? So I have to represent my district. But on a daily basis, we simply, as a politician in the state government, you have to be able to build relationships in order to get anything done. I always thought that once I was elected, that I'd get there, I'd be able to create law. The problem is I can have the best idea in the world, but if my leadership does not like me, doesn't want me around, doesn't appreciate something I've done, nothing I bring to the table will ever get heard. And so you have to be able to not only have good ideas, but build relationships so that you can get things done.
Now, really, I'm not an elected official, so I'm going to say some things that you probably can't say. And I just want to know,
Sure.
you're going to be going to the state capitol February through May. You're in session there. Is it possible to pass some sort of rule, some sort of law where G.T. Bynum can go in quarantine for several years? The mayor of Tulsa. Can you do that? Is that something you have the power to do? I want to put him in quarantine by himself because he's afraid of the virus. He can wear a mask. He can run around there, and he can be totally safe. I'm even willing to raise my taxes. I'm going on the record saying this. I'm willing to spend an extra $100 a day, every day, for the next however many 2 years, to make sure that he is fed and clothed in quarantine. I'm willing to pay the GT tax. Can you do that, sir?
You know what? We could always bring it to the table, and you might even have close to 50% of the people there vote for it. But
I mean, what are your thoughts on these mask mandates and these lockdowns? I just want to get your take.
Yeah, unconstitutional. I mean, anytime, and think about this. They're saying the reason I'm supposed to wear my mask is to protect those other people around me. And the reason they're supposed to wear theirs is to protect me. And that's the biggest, most bogus line I've ever heard. Think about this. If I'm really concerned about the health of somebody else, why do I not tell them what to eat? Get out of that burger restaurant every day and go get something healthy. Is that my job? My job is personally responsible for myself, and that's it. And so I have to be personally responsible for me. I'm the one that makes sure I don't get sick. But this idea that your mask protects somebody else is just the media's way of saying, if you don't come along with us, you're equivalent to throwing grandmother off the cliff, right? You're that type of person. You don't care about anybody unless you wear a mask. It's unconstitutional. They can't tell us what to do with our time, money, energy, other than through the taxes that we pay.
So you're saying that the mask mandates, lockdown, shuttering schools, and quarantining America to protect us from the COVID-19 virus is unconstitutional?
I believe it is 100% unconstitutional.
Okay.
And take it a step further with the vaccines. They're trying to tell us that we have to vaccinate. No, where does personal choice come in? My right as an individual to do what I do with my body. If I want to overeat and get fat, that's my choice.
Yep.
If I want to do drugs, that's my choice, right? But I think with this mask mandate, they just don't have the right to tell us what we have to do.
I'm sure you've seen this, but I'm going to read it because it makes me excited. The CDC finally, I'm sure they've got some pressure from their soul or their pressure from somebody in charge to finally tell the truth. They finally released the information in the last 72 hours stating that only 9,120 Americans actually died from COVID-19, not with COVID-19.
right.
Now, those tests you take, okay, these tests we take, the antibody tests, it turns out the COVID-19 antibodies are very common amidst the American population. Thus, the probability of you dying from COVID-19 has dropped from 0.04% now down to 0.0000024%. Is that shocking to you, Kevin?
Well, it's not shocking at all, honestly. I felt like the numbers were always blown out of proportion and don't even come close to the flu. But when you have, from one year we've got Ebola, we've got swine flu, we've got all these other flus, we've never seen anything like this. So in the very beginning, you start seeing it on the media. One of the things, the best thing your listeners can do, honestly, is turn off the media. And I'm talking local and federal, because you are not getting what's real through the media at all. And I've got example after example in state politics how that's true. My very first day, we were listening to a bill called Blue Lives Matter. And all we were saying, at that time, people were killing cops at gas stations. And all we were saying was, if you kill a cop in Oklahoma and you're found guilty, it's an automatic death chamber. And the guy that was presenting the bill kept saying, when an officer walks out of the house, he needs to know. He needs to understand. His family needs to know we've got their back. And a lady stood up and she said, do you mean he or she? And he said, yes, ma'am. I mean he, she, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. If they're wearing that blue uniform, that's who I'm talking about. Well, he kept saying he. And she stood up one more time, said, you mean he or she? That night, the news that ran had nothing to do about Blue Lives Matter. It said women are not appreciated at the Capitol. And that's the story they ran. And that's the kind of junk that we get from news media on a daily basis. They totally blew COVID-19 out of proportion.
That is just, it's to me, we're in a crazy spot where I guess I have one more sneaky question for you. Sir, you're an elected official. You're looking at the data probably as much or more than anybody else. Dr. Scott Atlas, the medical doctor from Stanford, was recently appointed to the coronavirus task force. And he's coming out talking about how coronavirus, and I'm quoting, he said coronavirus is thankfully less dangerous than the common flu for school-aged children. Is that at all, I mean, again, if you type into Twitter, just type in Twitter and type in Dr. Scott Atlas. Don't believe me, folks. Look it up. This is on his Twitter feed. Dr. Scott Atlas. This is not clayclark.com. It's not rightwing.com. It's not tinfoilhat.com. He says, we know that the risk of the disease is extremely low for children, even less than that of the seasonal flu. If what he's saying is true, Dr. Fauci has to get fired. Do you think Fauci's going to get fired, sir?
I would hope that he's going to. And the worst case scenario with him is he owns the patents on everything. He owns the patents on the COVID-19. He owns the patents on all the vaccines. So how's it right that we've got an official who's determining what's going to happen in the United States that's also going to get paid millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for the decisions that he makes, when you and I are supposed to go vaccinate ourselves so that we don't die of COVID-19? Should he be fired? Absolutely. In my mind, he should be gone.
Okay. Josh Wilson,
yes.
You own Living Water Irrigation. It's a Christian-owned business. You do irrigation systems, sprinkler repair, that kind of thing. What question would you have for Kevin McDugle?
Well, my first question, Kevin, is there like a part of Coweta that you just want to like let go because there's just like this black hole in Coweta that just. Sorry, that's not nice. Just kidding. You can't say that. Your constituents are amazing out there in Coweta.
No, not really.
Hey, so
no, Coweta's pretty awesome.
So I've never really been involved in politics, and I won't listen to the Coweta's awesome part, but I've never been. I'm going to lose every customer I've ever dreamed of having in Coweta. Actually, there's a great guy out there. I'm doing a sprinkler system for him in November.
There's a great guy out there. Good recovery.
One man. So, no, hey, so I don't know anything about politics or anything about the process, so I'm really interested. So when you guys are in session there, February to May, so you guys are on the floor, and you said that nonsense of obviously your first day and how that played out. But the actual, bill and the presentation of it and the passing through the House, is that a one-day process? Is that weeks? Is that months? Is that years? I mean, what are we talking about? If you present something this February and say you want to make a rule that GT Bynum has to leave the state of Oklahoma, And I mean, if you presented that,
Please
how
make that
long?
rule.
How long would that take to go through the process?
Yeah, it could literally happen in one session.
Okay.
So, or it could take literally years, depending on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And I'll just say this: the first 3 weeks when we get there, February, the first 3 weeks, we're in committee meetings. Our bill deadline is November this year. We have to have it written, presented, and ready to go by February. In February, they start creating these committees, and you might have a committee on law enforcement, for instance. And the Committee on Law Enforcement gets all bills assigned to them that relate to law enforcement. So you get into committee, you hear these bills, you have a chance to read them, look through them, vote them yes or no. If they pass committee, then they get put into another pile, and they go sit before the floor leader, and the floor leader gets to decide which of those bills that come out of committee are actually going to be heard on the floor. So the floor leader makes a decision based on whether it's a good bill, a bad bill, that kind of thing. It gets assigned to the floor. Then we are on the floor session for another 2 or 3 weeks, and those bills are presented by the author, and they vote yes, vote no. If it's voted yes, then it sits in another pile. And when the Senate gets through with theirs and they vote for them, then we swap bills. So all the bills that passed in the House now go to the Senate. All the bills that passed in the Senate now go to the House. We start committees all over again. So all of the bills that came from the Senate, we sit in committees and we hear those, and we either vote yes, vote no, pass those or deny them. If they pass, then they go back to the floor leader. The floor leader decides which of those bills we'll actually hear on the House floor. We put them on the House floor, vote them yes or vote them no. If it came from the Senate, got voted yes there, voted yes on the House floor, then it's ready to go straight to the governor. If any changes are made to those bills in either house, for instance, if the Senate sent us a bill and we voted on it, but it had an amendment, then it's got to be sent back to the Senate for approval on the amendment. And so these bills literally can go back and forth. And when we get elected, it's a 2-year term. So I have February through May my first year and February through May the second year to get a bill completely all the way through. And if it doesn't make it that second year, then you start all over again the next time you're elected. And so it's not as easy as a lot of people think about just going and presenting an idea. It can be a great idea, but you have to sell a lot of other people on how great that idea is and how good it is for Oklahoma.
How much, and I mean, I'm sure you can answer this, but how much self-serving stuff is happening in our state government? Like how many representatives or senators are over there like, hey, let's present a bill that benefits my neighborhood? I mean, how much of that nonsense is going on, Kevin?
You know, not as much as you would think.
Okay. Good.
I literally thought, sitting on the outside, I thought all these politicians are corrupt and crooked. And I think that's more at the federal level. On the state level, do we have some of that? Absolutely. But I can tell you this, if my business if my business can thrive off of a bill that I'm creating, then I have to recuse myself from a vote. And so there's actually a vote called a constitutional vote. It's not a yes vote. It's not a no vote. It's saying I'm doing the constitutional thing and I cannot vote on this because I'll have personal gain if I do vote on it.
Okay.
And so I have to recuse myself. And so you have that opportunity, but it doesn't happen as much as you would think, especially at the state level.
I have a question for you, and then I want to turn it over to the Attorney James for the final couple questions here. Nancy Pelosi, just a really quality individual. It turns out that she shuttered a salon, all the salons, but a specific salon in San Francisco. And this is crazy. Less than 2 hours ago, security footage showed that she went into the salon that she forced to be closed to get a Brazilian blowout. And the owner of the salon is calling this a slap in the face. And they have security footage of her running around without a mask, with her acting like this is just the best thing in the world. They've got is that shocking to you, the hypocrisy at the federal level of somebody like Nancy Pelosi? Are you shocked anymore?
I'm not shocked at anything anymore, and it's unfortunate. And I mean, what we've seen is a great divide between reality and what they want you to believe is reality. And I'm so aggravated about the way Nancy Pelosi and her minions and all these folks up there act. That is literally one of the most powerful places to be. Her seat, to hold the Speaker of the House seat. There's so much power there. The last Speaker of the House on the Republican side, even after he didn't get reelected, still had power in our state capitol because he was in charge of all the finances that came in. So he was still powerful, even though he wasn't an elected official there. It's just crazy hypocrisy. I see it all the time at the federal level.
James, you moved here from Manhattan to escape, in part, the unconstitutional lockdowns of your state and city. You've seen it just rip apart New York City, and you're here. You've teamed up with us. You've helped me file the lawsuit, and Dr. Zellner, the lawsuit against GT King Bynum. And I wanted to get you have the mic here. You can ask Kevin McDugle any question that you'd like to, and then no matter what question you ask, Andrew, the great one, will one-up you. So, James, back to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, nice to meet you. All right.
Likewise, James.
Thank you. So I just, before I ask my question, I just wanted to point something out as far as Clay's numbers are concerned, that, that CDC report where they drastically reduced the numbers now from 0.02 or 4% to 0.0000, sort of endless zeros, 24 or whatever it is. That, by the way, is dying of COVID, not with COVID, but of COVID, for non-laboratory confirmed COVID cases. So if a doctor says, oh, you have a cough and talks it up to COVID, that's a COVID diagnosis without a test. So the number is even less reliable. But I just wanted to point that out. And then my question, you'd mentioned before, Kevin, about a business person being in office and the motivation behind that. I assume that's where you come from. So my question relates to that. What is your why? Why did you run for office? Why are you doing this public service? What's your motivation?
Yeah, it's twofold, really. I served in the United States Marine Corps, and so I've got a heart for service anyway. And at that point in my life, I saw the state government getting ready to do something that was going to kill small business, and that was bringing Obamacare. And all the things that Obamacare had, if you had more than 50 employees, which we were getting close to 50 at that time, when you have more than 50 employees, it would literally break your company. And so I thought, if this guy's a Republican and he's trying to bring Obamacare to Oklahoma, somebody's got to run against him.
True.
And so that was the reason I got in. And then once I got there, it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be to get things done. And we're literally in a fight for our country right now.
Oh, for
and
sure.
We've got to have people with a backbone that stands in state government, federal government, that will stand up to these tyrannical human beings that want to destroy America. And so that's my heart right now. I've literally lost money in business in doing politics because you've got to step away from your business. And so my first couple of years, I lost a lot of money in gross revenue in our business because I wasn't there to babysit it all the time. And that's since gotten a lot better because I've figured out how to get it done. But at the same time, there's a sacrifice there that a lot of people say, well, look at all the money you make in state politics. Well, I'm sorry. But there's times that you also lose a lot of money trying to do the right thing. And so I hope that answered your question.
For sure. I know a great business coach, by the way.
Hey, listen now, Andrew, you are, no matter what question James asks, you always find a way to really one up him.
Yes.
And it's not something you do, you don't ask to go last just so you can sit back and one up him, but that happens all the time.
Yes.
So, okay. So what is the question that you'd like to ask Kevin McDugle at this point here?
So it kind of goes with James's question of, how you'd mentioned business owners make, good people in office and can get a lot done, and that's just what they're used to is actually, making things happen. And so, a lot of people, maybe someone has reached their goal with their business or they've achieved financial and time freedom. If they do decide to run for office, is that like, a lot of people might not be doing it because they might think it's a life thing, it's a long-term thing, and so it's going to require a whole lot of time. Should people run for office for like 4 years, for a really long time? For like, it doesn't have to be, or does it have to be a long-term commitment, or should they be running for like a shorter term, or how else can they help once they've achieved that time and financial freedom?
You know, get into politics. I think everybody needs to get involved because if you can do it for 2 years, that's great. That's the shortest term in state government. But in 2 years, honestly, you barely learn where the bathrooms are, right? So, I mean, it takes a lot of time just to figure out the process and to be able to get in and get things done. But everyone should be involved at a level because what we've seen in Oklahoma is you've got an extreme right, you've got an extreme left, you've got the majority of Oklahomans somewhere there in the middle. And if you don't watch it, then one of those extreme groups end up taking over, and you end up seeing decisions that really don't represent the whole. And so my job, literally, and I'll tell you guys this, you guys are all pissed off at Tulsa, Oklahoma because of the way they handled things. During COVID, when we shut down in the state, I called every one of my city leaders in Wagner County. I told them, I said, if a business does not want to shut down, you cannot mandate they shut down. And we all agreed. So when you guys had everything shut down here, I had tanning beds open in Wagner, Oklahoma.
Amen.
Because that tanning bed salon wanted to be open.
Tanning
right?
beds were open.
And so
Excited about tanning
go to
beds.
Wagner County, right?
Right.
I mean,
Attaboy,
it all
Kevin.
depends
I take
on-
back everything
on
I
where
said
you're
about
at.
Coweta.
I'll tell you what. I'm serious. I wanted to have Kevin on the show because he is a freedom-loving American.
Yeah.
Kevin, if people want to learn more about you, where can they do it?
You know, the biggest way right now is just search Kevin McDugle and ignore all the nasty stuff you see because there's a ton of that when you run for politics. If you're going to run for politics, you better have a backbone because I promise you, everybody in the world will come out and say nasty things about you at some point. And but if they want to go to kevinmcdougall.com, they can do that. They can also go to the state capital of Oklahoma, and I've got a full bio out there with contact information. They can reach me there.
Kevin, I appreciate you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you for your time, sir.
I appreciate you guys. Keep fighting for freedom. Thank you.
Take care. Andrew, on part 2 of today's show, this morning I was interviewed on the Pat Campbell radio show.
Oh, nice.
Talk Radio 1170.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd play the audio from that show. But again, it gets heavy. Anytime you start talking about politics, it starts to get heavy. So I want you to practice this new voice. This is the political voice that somehow makes a difficult subject more digestible. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I want you to say the following statement in with the new voice.
The new voice.
The new. It's the political move that it's like this. It's like when you have a salad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of bland, but you add a little salad dressing.
Little sauce.
All of a sudden, it makes the salad more digestible.
Yeah.
Whenever we start talking politics, some of our listeners can't handle the heaviness of the situation.
It can be heavy.
So I want you to
Can be.
I want you to say this. I want you to say, up next, folks, Clay Clark will be interviewed by Pat Campbell. But I want you to say it with the voice. So I want you. I'll try. Up next, folks, Clay Clark will be interviewed by Pat Campbell. All right, so I want you to try it with me now.
I can't.
You can.
I
You have to want
You're
it.
doing something like with your nose. I don't know what's happening.
Up next.
next.
There it is. Up next. Now listen.
Next.
Now listen. Get the didgeridoo out.
Oh, I can
you,
do that.
You play
I
that
can
while
do
I
that.
talk over it. And that'll lighten the mood a little bit. Now when we go into the next segment, at least it's digestible. You start talking about politics, it gets too heavy. The didgeridoo, by the way, is an instrument that really doesn't sound good even if you're good at it. But you've been practicing for several minutes, I'm sure. So crank it up. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, up next. Come on, get serious, man. Our listeners deserve more. Let me get the cowbell ready. Here we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, during our next segment, Clay Clark will be interviewed by Pat Campbell.
Well, now we've got a special guest, gentleman I invited on the program today by the name of Clay Clark. Clay, are you there?
I am here, Pat.
You sent me a very interesting picture yesterday about a young lady reading your new book. Tell everybody what you sent.
The South Dakota governor has my book, Fear Unmasked, in her hands, and we look forward to interviewing her on our podcast here coming up in the next few weeks.
Pretty cool. So how did you arrange the meeting with her?
There's a lot of things that are going on right now, but essentially 5 months ago, I was pretty out front about being very distrusting of the models that predicted America should be shut down. And since that time, we've had U.S. Secretary Carson's people have reached out. The Deputy White House Press Secretary has reached out. Dr. Scott Jensen. We just have a lot of people reaching out. And I think this was through a gentleman by the name of Josh, who's a client who somehow knows somebody who knows her. And so I think that's what's happening right now. But there's a lot of connections going on, a lot of stuff happening, frankly, at a very rapid pace. But I believe it's through Josh Fellman, one of my clients with 500KMSP.com.
You are on fire right now. You're one of the hottest things in media out there, and I love it every time you show up on, MSNBC, CNN. I just set my stopwatch to see how quick they keep you on before they dump you. They never keep you around. You make them feel very uncomfortable. You're highly opinionated. So tell me about this booklet on fear and unmasking it.
Okay, well, I wrote a book called Fear Unmasked, and the book promptly, Pat, got banned from Amazon.com. Now, I want to make sure the listeners understand the profundity of this idea. My literary agent, her name is Esther Federkevich, okay? And when you go to Target or Barnes & Noble, all of those Tim Tebow books that you see, she's Tim Tebow's agent, all right? She represents Pastor Jensen Franklin. So she read this book to make sure there's no hate, there's no anger, there's no aggression. All it explains is that the models that predicted 2.2 million people might die were off by 25 times, and the organization that made the models, the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, was funded by Amazon. And it just explains that Neil Ferguson, the guy who made the models, is always wrong. I mean, he's perpetually wrong. This is what he does. He is it's like one of those people who predicts that their team will go to the NBA Finals and they're always wrong. You know, it's that kind of thing. He's just always wrong. That's what he specializes in, is being wrong. And so my book got banned from Amazon, and then Elon Musk's team, they reached out to Amazon to get several books unbanned, and mine was one of those books.
Interesting. So when it comes to Oklahoma, okay,
yeah.
Who decides what we're going to do here? What decisions are going to be made as far as public health decisions?
Well, I can say that you look at a guy like Bruce Dart, the Tulsa Health leader. These people have an agenda, and if you start to explain too much detail, right away people go, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist," whatever. So I would just say that if your listeners want a copy of their printed plan, it is called the Rockefeller Plan. It was written in 2010. I can give it to all your listeners. It's a PDF that just explains the plan, and the plan is the whole world lockstep on the same team here, and we're going to call for tighter quarantines and actual curfews. That's what we're talking about. And so the health departments that are going along with this plan, Tulsa's one of those, are implementing the plan. And so Bruce Dart is implementing that. However, Governor Stitt is not down with the Rockefeller Plan. And my client and friend, Mayor Craig Thurman.
That's an interesting component there. Talk to me about why that is so significant.
Well, Governor Stitt believes in our First Amendment rights to peaceably gather, and he also has the data. I mean, just yesterday, the CDC reported that, only 6% of those that we've attributed to COVID-19 actually died from COVID-19, which means that your chances of actually dying from COVID-19 have dropped from 0.04% to a remarkable 0.00024%, meaning that only 9,120 people have died directly from COVID-19. And those that died with COVID-19 had an average of 2.3 comorbidities. So Kevin Stitt is aware that, one, you should never shut the country down, never shut your state down, never shut your city down. But two, he's aware that the chances of a child dying from COVID-19 are less than 1 out of a million. And for the average person, it's a 0.00024% chance of dying.
So why wouldn't people want everybody to know that?
Well, it's part of the agenda. And so the specific agenda, if you look at, let's go with Nicaragua. Oh, that's a fun place to go. The mayor of New York, his name is Bill.
It's lovely this time of the year. Go ahead.
Well, the mayor of New York, his name is Bill de Blasio. I think we all know the name Bill de Blasio.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people know that Bill de Blasio actually changed his name, because his actual name before wasn't Bill de Blasio, because he was actually a member of the Sandistas that led the Nicaraguan overthrow. And he had to change his name to escape his past. And so people don't realize the nefariousness. They don't realize that Black Lives Matter is an absolutely great sentiment we can all get behind. But the organization that hijacked the phrase is funded by George Soros. So people don't understand that the remdesivir drug that never made it through clinical trials because it kills people, that drug, the patent for remdesivir, is actually owned by China in conjunction with George Soros, a.k.a. Gilead. So the very guy driving these riots, George Soros, is the very guy giving you remdesivir, which is essentially a poison. It's never made it through clinical trials. It's terrible. All to keep you from taking my wife.
Whatever, Clay. Yeah, let me jump in here because otherwise you'll hijack the whole show.
No problem,
buddy. So why is it that we're not telling people all of this? We're just telling people part of this. And when somebody like you, especially, gets on cable TV, they can't cut you off fast enough.
Well, what happened is that you have this thing called the global reset. And if your listeners go to timetofreeamerica.com and you click on the Truth About the Global Reset button on timetofreeamerica.com, Al Gore is in the Wall Street Journal. This is not rightwing.com. He's saying that it's time for a global reset. This is Al Gore. Al Gore is saying it's time for a global reset, okay? And what does that even mean? I have this all cited so you can look at it. He's saying that now we need to go ahead and look forward. We need to move forward with this new thing called the one world government. This is what Al's into. We need to move to one world currency. It's actually called a trust stamp or a COVID pass, where you essentially your freedoms to move about are restricted unless you have a COVID pass to prove that you have a vaccine to protect you from a virus that's less dangerous than the common flu.
Clay, hold that thought for a moment. I want to get into this a little deeper with you. Phone number here, 918-879-1170. That's 918-879-1170 is the number that puts you in touch with me, Pat Campbell, here on Talk Radio 1170, where Tulsa comes to talk.
Live and local coverage of what matters most to Tulsa and Oklahoma. We are Talk Radio 1170. Hot news opinions. And proud of it. Pat Campbell in the mornings on Talk Radio 1170.
So it is 9:50, and we are joined by Clay Clark, who's turning out to be the most dangerous man in the country lately. Clay, I've known you for a long time. Some people think you're a bit of a nut job. I think you got that component going for you, but you're on fire now, and you're making a lot of people very uncomfortable, very nervous, talking about things that you can actually back up with documentation.
Correct.
And the other thing, a little bit earlier, we mentioned Governor Stitt. You're in a unique position where you've got his ear. He seems to be one of the guys, the leader, that's not really following, the direction or the talking points, whether it's from the health department or CDC or whatever, trying to get the entire state to be mask compliant. So fill in those blanks for me. What can you tell me about Stitt? Where is he going next?
Well, I can speak to this. I know that Governor Stitt is a Judeo-Christian. I know he believes the Bible is literal, and I know he believes that the Constitution is not a document that we move away from in times of crisis. I believe he believes it's a document, a foundational document. So he fundamentally believes in your First Amendment right to peaceably gather, your Second Amendment right to bear arms. And so as this COVID-19 chaos bears fruit, although it be poisonous fruit, I believe that you're going to see him return to those principles with even more intensity. I don't think you're going to see him react the way that communist China did to their virus, which turns out to have a 0.00024% death rate, according to the CDC, as of Monday morning. So again, I would just say Governor Stitt loves our country. He loves this Constitution. He loves the Lord, and he's going to be keeping us in line with the constitutional rights that all Americans have fought for. So many people have died to protect our country, and he's not going to fall away from those principles when it gets tough.
So how does the average listener out there, I'll use my mom as an example, back in Pennsylvania. She doesn't know what's up, what's down.
Yeah.
I tell her it's like, almost like walking into the library. You got to remember some parts are fiction, some parts are nonfiction.
Yeah.
She feels like she's been misled to, she's been lied, she's been manipulated. She's not alone. What do you say to those people?
Well, I would say, one, we did an interview with Dr. Richard Bartlett. Dr. Richard Bartlett. So if you go onto YouTube and just type in Thrive Time Show Richard Bartlett, or if you email me to info@thrivetimeshow.com, I'll send you a link, info@thrivetimeshow.com. Dr. Richard Bartlett was Texas. He was the top medical advisor for the governor of Texas for 7 consecutive years. Okay, so not a quack. All right. He hopped on our show. This is over a month ago, and he said, "Clay, did you know that for $237 you can have access to a treatment that's FDA approved, and every single COVID-19 patient that I have treated in Odessa, Texas, hasn't died from COVID-19. And I go, really? I mean, how many have you treated? 1, 2, 5, 100? Pat, hundreds of people have been treated. No one has died. And all you need to take is a nebulizer, okay? And you use that to distribute the budesonide, pulmicort, and a CPAC. And folks, it's $237, and I don't make a commission. Now, my wife's very best friend, Haley, got sick the other day. And you know what, Pat? Her doctor wouldn't let her take the treatment. So she had to go to another place, and guess what? She's not dead. In fact, she got better in less than 12 hours. And she was getting bad. Another example is Marty Grisham, one of my clients. He owns OK Roof Nerds. His family was getting sick. They told him not to take hydroxychloroquine, which, by the way, has been an FDA-approved malaria drug for decades. But he listened to our interview. He fought back. His family went to a different doctor. They got the $237 silver bullet, as Dr. Richard Bartlett calls it. And they're not dead either. Nobody is dying when they take these treatments. So the question I would have, why would somebody not want you to have a treatment that could save your life? That's the question I have.
That's a great question. By the way, when I tried to put that Bartlett interview up on Facebook, guess what?
They banned it. Why would Facebook ban the use?
That's the weirdest thing, isn't it? Why would they ban your interview with
Well,
Dr.
now,
Bartlett?
if I start bringing up the facts, what's going to happen is someone's going to go, this guy's a conspiracy theorist. That's what you call anybody who's researched deeper than maybe we're comfortable going. Because when I was deep diving into this research, it's really, really crazy that Dr. Fauci, the guy that we were all trusting, when he's up there on the stage going, we shouldn't shut down the border, Pat. We shouldn't shut down the border. You shouldn't wear a mask. We're all going, that's my guy. That's my guy.
It's my guy.
And then he goes, well, you need to wear a mask. You need to. America's most trusted doctor, America's number one leading expert. Let me put it this way. Dr. Scott Atlas from Stanford, he's a medical doctor, Dr. Scott Atlas from Stanford. He's a medical doctor. He just got appointed to the coronavirus task force by President Trump. And let me tell you what, if what Dr. Scott Atlas is saying is true, Dr. Fauci has to go to jail. If what Dr. Fauci is saying is true, then Dr. Atlas is a fraud. So I would ask you, which person stands to benefit the most from the mandated vaccines? Oh, it is Dr. Fauci, who serves on the board of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So why would Dr. Richard Bartlett, a man with no conspiracy ties, why would he hop on my show and tell you about a treatment when he doesn't make a commission, he doesn't have the patent, all he cares about is his patients? And why would Dr. Fauci say all roads lead to a vaccine? All roads, I mean, Pat, no matter what goalpost we achieve, they change them again. First, they said 2.2 million people might die. We need to renovate the Javits Center.
Let me ask you a question about that. These models that were used initially.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Who decided what models we used and why?
Well, Neil Ferguson is the one who made the models. And if you remember, they said there was the models from the UK, Pat. The models from the UK show that 2.2 million people might die. And if you guys, if your listeners go to thrivetimeshow.com/coronavirus, you can listen to Neil Ferguson. Try not to fall asleep, but he literally suggests I have the clip. He suggests that we should shut our country down for 12 to 18 months. Are you nuts? Get out of here. Why are we listening to the UK? We fought a war to get away from the UK. The United States is the shining city on the hill. Why are we listening to communist morons and Neil Nefarious Ferguson? Get out of here. He works for the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute. I mean, would it be more credible if they would have said, folks, just so you know, a report from the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute, a country that we're currently in a price war with for oil, has made a model. We would have said, screw off. Who cares what the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute says?
Clay, I got to jump in here.
Sure.
Before I let you go, though, if people want to get their hands on a copy of your book, where do we send them? Real quick.
I recorded an audio book with the pop music star Colton Dixon. You can listen to it for free at timetofreeamerica.com. That's timetofreeamerica.com. If you want to buy a printed book, get it at amazon.com. That's called Fear Unmasked.
We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Take care, brother.
Back with more.
See ya. Bye. All right, Andrew, we like to end each and every show with a boom, so let's make it happen. All right, here we go. Ready?
So ready.
3, 2, 1, boom.